Yes. And how many know that if you call him, he will answer?
Yes, sir.
Amen. Good morning to everyone on this bright early 6 o'clock service. Good to see you in the building. Some of you all didn't go away for the holidays, but chose to kick it with your St. Paul family this morning. Amen. Amen. So if you will, let's stand as I know you came for a word. We're beginning our new series for this my office season, Repairers of the Breach. And we'll be opening with that very passage this morning, coming from Isaiah 58. Beginning at verse 6, reading to verse 12. If you have it, say amen. Amen. If you need a moment, say hold up. All right. Y'all moving fast this morning. Okay, I'm coming from the Message translation.
Love that translation.
And it reads like this. This is the kind of fast day I'm after. To break the chains of injustice, get rid of exploitation in the workplace, free the oppressed, and cancel debts. What I'm interested in seeing you do is sharing your food with the hungry, inviting the homeless poor into your homes, putting clothes on the shivering ill-clad, being available to your own families. Do this and the lights will turn on, and your lives will turn around at once. Your righteousness will pave your way, and the glory of God, the God of glory, will secure your passage. Then when you pray, God will answer, and you'll call out for help, and I'll say, here I am. If you get rid of unfair practices, quit blaming victims, quit gossiping about the other people's sin.
Come on, sir.
You are generous with the hungry and start giving yourselves to the down and out. Your lives will begin to glow in the darkness, and shadow lives will be bathed in sunlight. I will always show you where to go, and I'll give you a full life in the emptiest of places. I'll give you firm muscles and strong bones. And you'll be like a well-watered garden, a gurgling spring that never runs dry. You'll use the old rubble of past lives to build anew and rebuild the foundations from out of your past. You'll be known as those who can fix anything, restore old ruins, rebuild and renovate, and make the community livable again.
Beautiful.
Let us pray. Father, we come to you in this moment.
Bless your word, Lord.
Asking you to send the power, to send your spirit, to preach your word in season. God, may you do what only you can. For you've been speaking your word since the beginning of time. For it was your word that created the heavens and the earth. It was your word that shaped us and made us come into being. So now, God, breathe on us once again as your word is proclaimed.
Bless him, Lord.
You alone be glorified. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I want to preach from the thought this morning. Stop fronting.
Woo!
Stop fronting. For 70 years, Judeans found themselves in exile under Babylonian captivity. For 70 years, they dealt with the psychological trauma of being dislocated from home and the aching memory of seeing their temple destroyed. For 70 years, Judeans found themselves serving under the oppression and forced labor of King Nebuchadnezzar's rule. It was for 70 years that they fought against the temptation of assimilating to their oppressors' culture, beliefs, idols, and practices. While some gave in, there was others who still remained faithful to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Eventually, however, they experienced an exodus from exile. Everyone didn't make it, for some friends and family had passed away during the exilic period. But the rest of the diasporic community were free from Babylon. They were free of abuse and oppression somewhat. For as they returned home, they found themselves under the rule of another empire, the Persians. But they had traded dancing partners simply in their oppression. But something wasn't adding up for Israel. From the time they were in captivity until now, it's been about 100 years, and they've yet to see God's promises of total redemption fulfilled. Israel was doing all the right spiritual rituals and practices. They were fasting. They were lying in sackcloth and ashes. They were seeking God's face. But they began to question God, as seen in verse 3. Why do we fast, but you do not see? Why humble ourselves, but you do not notice? Israel was faced with the dilemma of uncertainty, church. Every valley looked lower. Every mountain appeared to be getting higher. The crooked places were being made more twisted, and the rough places seemed more rugged. The glory of the Lord was hidden, and nobody was witnessing anything except Persia's power and dominance. The stabilizing institutions of the temple and the monarchy had been wiped out, for Israel wasn't living, they were simply existing. Meanwhile, God realized that, on the other hand, something wasn't adding up with Israel either. For God answers back and even checks Israel. Even God throws a little bit of shade. He tells them, yet day after day, they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness and did not forsake their ordinance of God. God makes it known to Israel that they've been fasting, but they were really looking to serve their own interests on their fast day. Although they've been fasting, they were oppressing their workers. Although they've been fasting, they were quarreling and fighting. Although they've been fasting, they were still allowing chains of injustice to be prevalent. Although they've been fasting, they've been putting people in prisons unfairly. Although they've been fasting, they've been maintaining debts for profits. Israel has been fasting, but they've been withholding food from the hungry. They've been fasting, but shutting the doors to the homeless. They've been fasting, but retaining clothes for themselves while negating others. They've been fasting, but they even haven't attended to their own family members' needs. They've been fasting, but they've been gossiping about other people's sin.
Well,
they've been fasting, but they've been blaming victims. They've been fasting, but exercising unfair practices. And God simply makes it known that Israel was existing because the community was no longer livable. Wow. Israel was rich in religious ritual, but poor in social follow-through. They have been more self-serving. Their religion and piety was empty. God exposes Israel for who they really were. Although Israel had been complaining to God, depriving them of justice from their oppressors in Babylon, God responds by